The finale of the East Palace delivers an emotional conclusion that combines supernatural action with long-awaited character redemption. While the battle against the Crown Prince provides the spectacle, the ending is ultimately about breaking cycles of resentment, accepting responsibility, and choosing life over revenge. By the final episode, nearly every major character is forced to confront the past they've been unable to escape. Some are consumed by it, while others finally find the strength to let it go. Although the Crown Prince spends most of the series as a tragic figure, the finale makes it clear that he has crossed the point of redemption. His original anger wasn't entirely unjustified. Like Princess Sengang, he was another victim of King Yeoncheong's decisions. The king sacrificed innocent plague victims in an attempt to save Joseon. While the royal family's actions destroyed countless lives, those sins created the resentment that allowed the plague spirits to gather around the palace. However, the Crown Prince eventually stops fighting for justice. Instead, he becomes consumed by obsession. Even after the plague spirits begin living peacefully, he refuses to let go of his hatred. He openly admits that becoming king was always his greatest desire, and because that dream can never come true, he decides no one deserves to live. That confession reveals the difference between him and the princess. Sengang also suffered because of her father. She also hated the king, but she ultimately chooses forgiveness. The Crown Prince chooses destruction. By that point, he's no longer fighting for those who died during the plague. He's simply trying to drag the entire kingdom down with him. One of the finale's biggest surprises is that the battle isn't won through force alone. Throughout the series, the plague spirits are treated as terrifying monsters, but the finale reminds us they were once ordinary people. They became spirits because they died angry, abandoned, and without justice. For years, King Yeoncheon avoided fully confronting his responsibility. During the appeasement rite, that finally changes. Instead of defending his actions, he openly admits that sacrificing innocent people, even for the kingdom, was unforgivable. More importantly, he doesn't ask to be forgiven. He tells the spirits they have every right to hate him. If they wish to kill him, he'll accept it. That honesty becomes the one thing the spirits never received while alive. Rather than seeking revenge forever, they finally receive acknowledgement that what happened to them was wrong. Once they let go of their resentment, the Crown Prince immediately loses much of the supernatural power he'd stolen from them. The scene reinforces one of the drama's central ideas: unresolved guilt creates monsters, while sincere accountability begins healing them. Normally, exorcists throughout the series try to guide spirits peacefully into the afterlife. Guan initially wants to do the same. Unfortunately, the Crown Prince has become something much worse than an ordinary spirit. After consuming countless plague spirits and transforming into an agui, he can no longer be purified. Destroying him becomes the only remaining option. The finale also establishes the terrible cost of doing so. Anyone who completely erases another soul accumulates overwhelming karmic debt. That karma transforms the killer into an agui as well. Guan understands this before making his decision. He isn't surprised by the consequence. The moment he accepts Mother Guimei's power, he knowingly sacrifices his own future. His choice perfectly reflects his character throughout the series. He never fights because he expects to survive, he fights because someone has to. Saving Sengang and everyone inside the palace is worth sacrificing himself. At first, Mother Guimei seems like another terrifying supernatural enemy. Instead, she is portrayed as an ancient force that exists beyond ordinary ideas of good and evil. She doesn't help Guan out of compassion. She accepts a bargain. Guan is willing to pay any price necessary if it means saving Sengang. Mother Guimei grants him enough power to fight the Crown Prince, but the gift comes with an obvious warning. Power always demands payment. In many ways, she functions less like a villain than a supernatural embodiment of balance. She gives Guan exactly what he asks for, nothing more, nothing less. The finale intentionally makes us believe Guan's sacrifice is permanent. After destroying the Crown Prince, he loses nearly all of his yang energy. His body lies completely motionless. Even Sengang's desperate attempts to revive him fail. 3 days pass without any sign of life. Then the tiny spirit Gomuksali changes everything. Earlier in the series, Guan explains that this little supernatural creature only follows living people. When Sengang notices it still lingering nearby, she realizes something everyone else overlooked. Guan's body isn't dead, only his spirit has wandered away. Remembering Guan's stories about the riverside cliff where his mother died, Sengang realizes that's where he's gone. Spiritually, Guan has remained trapped at the place where his greatest trauma began. He survived physically. Emotionally, however, part of him never left that river. The reunion at the riverside is the emotional heart of the finale. Throughout the series, Guan carries tremendous guilt over surviving when his mother didn't. The prophecy even reminds him he was supposed to die alongside her. In many ways, Guan has spent his entire life believing he never truly belonged among the living. Sang-gang completely rejects that idea. She tells him his mother's death doesn't have to define the rest of his life. She reminds him of his own advice that life itself is precious. Most importantly, she becomes the one person asking him to choose life for himself instead of sacrificing it for everyone else. The ringing bell symbolizes that choice. Rather than following the dead, Guan finally hears someone calling him back to the living. For the first time, he chooses his own future instead of his past. The final meeting between Guan and King Yeoncheon creates one last moment of uncertainty. Guan knows far too much. He's witnessed the palace's supernatural secrets, the king's greatest sins, and the hidden history of the royal family. Historically, that kind of knowledge often ends with execution. Instead, the king makes a different choice. His decision reflects how much he's changed. Earlier in the series, he repeatedly hid the truth to protect the throne. Now he chooses trust instead of fear. The warning he gives Guan isn't really a threat. It's an acknowledgement that trust always carries risk. The king simply hopes Guan will prove worthy of the faith he's placing in him. Sang-gang's final decision mirrors Guan's journey. For most of the drama, both characters are trapped by the past. Guan cannot escape his mother's death. Sang-gang cannot escape the royal family's tragedies. Neither truly has a future. Once the curse ends, they finally gain that freedom. Guan plans to leave alone because that's what he's always done. Sang-gang refuses to let him. Earlier, Guan spent the entire series helping her confront painful memories, understand her spiritual abilities, and survive palace life. Now she decides it's her turn. Rather than remaining a lonely princess imprisoned by the palace, she chooses a completely different life. Together, they walk away from the royal court and from the identities that once defined them. The final supernatural scream reminds us that spirits still exist and that evil hasn't disappeared from the world, but unlike the beginning of the series, Guan no longer has to face that world alone. The finale suggests that true healing isn't achieved by defeating monsters, it's achieved by confronting guilt. King Yeoncheon finally admits his crimes, the plague spirits finally receive acknowledgement, Sang-gang lets go of her hatred for her father, Guan lets go of the guilt surrounding his mother's death. Only the crown prince refuses to release the past, and that refusal ultimately destroys him. The closing image of Guan and Sang-gang leaving the palace together perfectly captures the series' message. Neither of them can erase what happened, but they no longer have to let those tragedies dictate the rest of their lives. For the first time, they're not walking toward another battle, they're walking toward a future they get to choose together.